Real quick before we get into today's video, just want to thank all the people over on Patreon for all their support, because without their help, the upgraded content that you see on the channel, that you really see in the video essays and a few of the lore discussions would not be possible without their help. But over on the Patreon, you get sneak peeks of videos months in advance. Patrons also get priority on the Q&As. Every 3 months we do an anime and manga haul, and I give away a lot of good goodies in that. And it's also just really cool to talk to you guys in the DMs. And if some of you guys have theories that you want me to talk about on the channel, obviously I will talk about your theories. Just send them to me over on the Patreon. But with that being said, let's get into the review. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another review for Boruto Naruto Next Generations, episode 254. And now that episode 254 is done in the books, man, I can already tell this is gonna be one of those episodes where you're gonna have half the community like, yo, I can't believe they ended it like this, what's going on here? And then you're gonna have the other half saying like, yo, the old folks used to say she get it from her mama, well, Boruto get it from his daddy. That talk no jutsu is strong. So keeping it real with you, this was an episode where there was beautiful animation. It's just that after all this buildup, I can see how a lot of people wanted there to be a bit of a longer fight than what we got. We had Boruto willingly allow himself to be beat down. You got Kawaki, he goes into Arayumi's location, he gets the drop on him, and before Arayumi can do anything, Kawaki just slits the man's throat. The man goes out like a total punk. I can totally see where there's going to be a lot of pushback on that. But what we're going to do first is we're going to go over the actual episode itself, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on a lot of the decisions that happen here, whether or not I'm disappointed about there not being a drag him out fight. I will say real quick, I did kind of get the narrative intent, which is essentially people that have strength don't necessarily have to show that they have strength, and you saw that highlighted a couple times in the episode where Sarada's got her Sharingan activated, she refuses to fight. Mitsuki has his Sage transformation powered up, and he's able to rein it in and stop the full-on transformation. So I get where they're going from that. Again, we'll talk about whether or not that was a good idea after the fact. So I like how the episode opens up where you have Ikada essentially change his mind, because Boruto says, I'll give up my life, and Ikada says like, yo, you dying ain't gonna change anything. But when he sees how much it's gonna hurt Sarada and Mitsuki, you have this moment where Ikada says, well, maybe I'll allow it if you guys can just stay there and not attack us. I'll consider ending the war. And what I like right here is that Boruto has a line where he says, I'm scared of dying, but if me dying is enough to prevent future deaths, I'm fine for it. Everyone who died in this war, they must have been scared. It must have saddened all the people they left behind. But at the same time, they died protecting people that they cared for. And the one thing I will say is that Boruto's line of thinking right here, if you read the manga, you know exactly how this sets up. Boruto manga chapter, I believe it's chapter 62 or chapter 63, where a major event takes place in the manga that happened a few months ago. So I get where they're coming from there, because you can see how Boruto comes to the line of thinking that occurs in chapter 63. So I'm fine with that. That's good setup in that respect. Now, the other thing here is that when Ikada says like, are you guys done talking? That's when the savage moment happens, where one of the Funato clan members steps forward and says he doesn't deserve an easy death. If he's gonna die, we need to go ahead and make sure he suffers for it. And so Boruto completely has his guard lowered so he can take all the attacks, and the Funato just gang up on him and began just knocking him crazy. And even though it's only about a 1 minute sequence, I thought the animation here was fluid, because you saw a lot of wind up, you saw the expressions on Boruto's face change. Again, art and animation are not the same thing. There's a lot of anticipation, a lot of wind up in this. There was good bounce elements, especially with the clothes and the hair. So no, the animation here was fluid. And what I like here is that as Ikada's watching this, Arayumi's like, that's my boy. That's my boy. He came up with something good right here. And what I like is that while all that's going, Arayumi doesn't realize that Kawaki's coming. And Kawaki looks over and he's like, this dude right here, he's an idiot. And Kawaki only sees one way to end the war. And essentially, he's looking at the situation saying that the real king on the chessboard right now, the one that we need to checkmate, is Arayumi. It's not Ikada. And I actually agree with Kawaki's line of thinking right here, because the king is what you go after to end the war itself, and Arayumi is really the one calling the shot. Arayumi just gave Ikada more flexibility, but Ikada is not the most important chess piece on the board. So I like that you see that, and I like how when Boruto does look like he's about to be knocked unconscious, Sarada and Mitsuki, they're talking to him, trying to talk some sense into him, and they're like, yo, I can't continue to sit back and watch this anymore. And once Boruto gets called out by Ikada, and Ikada's like, your desire to end this war was nothing but talk, Boruto stands back up, and that's where Ikada just continues to keep pushing the buttons here. And it's almost like what you saw where Obito, in a much different situation with different circumstances, Obito used the mind games in order to try and break Naruto, to see where Naruto's resolve was, to see if Naruto would make the same mistakes that he did. And what you're seeing here is that Ikada tries to do the same thing to see if Boruto's friends will make the same decisions he did towards going down that path. But the difference is that I don't think that there's enough here to justify Ikada trying to be the one that forces that out of Sarada and Mitsuki. I get it. For Sarada and Mitsuki, Boruto is family. I totally understand that. That's why I say I get why they would try to do this. I'm not too sure if the execution was 100%, though I will say that there was a very nice payoff where, Sarada says that even though Boruto and I, we've had our disagreements, he's been with me ever since I've been little, and you see them struggling with their bloodlust. So I will say there are parts of it that are effective. I'm personally just a little split on it, so I'm curious to see where you guys are on that topic. But Ikada then takes things a step further, where he allows Boruto to walk up onto the ramp, and he orders Kobuna, the son of Funamushi, to do it. And I like how in this moment right here, this is where we see one of the central themes of this episode, which is essentially the strong don't have to show physical strength to show that they're strong. And essentially Kobuna is walking up to Boruto. He's about to push him down. When Boruto grabs on the Kobuna's hands, he says that essentially you don't have to bloody your hands right now. And that was Boruto basically trying to stop Kobuna from having his innocence all the way taken. I get that. Like, he's already lost his father, but it's different once you take a life. Losing love, that's different, because everybody on this planet is gonna lose love. You're gonna love hard, and inevitably you are going to lose those that you care for. As somebody who has lost somebody that he loves very dearly, more than I love some of my family, I get what Boruto was saying right here when he was trying to spare Kobuna from that, because once Kobuna goes the route of wanting to kill somebody, it changes you. You never come back from that. When you kill somebody, the smell of gunpowder, the smell of burning flesh is gonna stick with you. In this case, there's no gunpowder, there's no burning flesh or anything like that, but Boruto's eyes are gonna be something that would have sticked with Kobuna for a very long time. So I like what Boruto tried to do here. Boruto willingly jumps down into the ocean. You have this beautiful sequence where Sarada breaks down, Mitsuki breaks down. I thought that was very nice right there. I also like how we see the reactions. Chojiro's like, oh my god, this kid's so naive. Chojiro's essentially saying like, yo, we need to get over here. Ikada takes the time to try and pressure Sarada and Mitsuki because he's trying to see the reflection of their heart. I get it. Like, essentially, he's like, oh, are you not going to avenge your friend? Is that not going to be something that happened? And what I like there is that when everybody's taunting them, when Ikada tries it, Sarada looks like she gives into it for a second, and Sarada just throws the kunai down. And of course, I hate you, but if I attack you, it's going to be something that's going to make me even sadder. Boruto doesn't want anybody to be sad. Mitsuki, after he begins to transform into a Sage transformation, Mitsuki cuts it off, and Mitsuki has a line later on where he says that if we continue to attack you, we are not going to be able to honor Boruto's wishes. Boruto would have died for nothing, and those moments kind of trigger something into Ikada where he thinks back to Siren's death, and he kind of views the death a little bit differently here. And what I like is that Ikada then has this inflection point moment where Ikada can go either I'm going to continue trying to push them, or I can go save Boruto. And essentially Kid has a change of heart. Ikada jumps down into the ocean and Ikada ends up rescuing Boruto. There's a beautiful animation sequence where you got Ikada rescuing Boruto. They're riding on top of a sea dragon, and I can't recall off the top of my head, and I did not check my book before I did the episode review because I try and do the episode reviews fresh with no script. That way you get an honest reaction because it's right after I watch the episode. But there's a Buddhism reference when it comes to the dragons. Dragons, depending on which part you look at in Buddhism, they can symbolize enlightenment, but in the sense of self, but also dragons are believed to have a authority over all things water. So like rain, the sea, floods, storms, etc. And when you add in like the heaven reference, Boruto was seemingly about to die and go to the Pure Land. I like what you see right here. I just can't remember the exact Buddhism reference in terms of the name of it, but I like that. But what I do like is that when Ikada lands with Boruto, everybody is kind of stunned, and you get this one super outspoken person from the Funato, and he's like, man, I can't believe you're soft. You can't let them get off like this. What'd you rescue this kid for? I'm ready to go out there and 86 somebody over this stuff right here. Like, where them boys at? Somebody get the strap, man. Like, that's what old boy was on right there. What I like is that you see one side of it, and then you see the more human side of war, where the other members of the Funato, they're saying, I can't continue with this anymore. I do not want my children to get drawn into the fighting and to suffer like Kobuna did, because Kobuna, after it appeared like Boruto died, Kobuna himself is conflicted. He's like, I did the right thing, right? This is what my father would have wanted. So I get where they're going for from that. They're trying to show the emotional toll that war takes on people, but it's one of those things where that's going to be a very divisive point right there, because on one hand, Boruto and Ikada, that was already foreshadowed there, and Ikada at the end of the episode says, well, you know, they didn't attack us after the fact. I consider ending the war, and I did end the war because they didn't attack. Some people feel that's cheap. The only thing I will say is that, like, yo, this is a Naruto franchise. All the signs were there that this was going to be a Talk no Jutsu. I held out hope that there was gonna be a fight there just based off of how there was some build up, but there was an equal amount of build up towards the fact that Boruto did not want to actually go through with any fighting. He wanted to resolve things through talking, and he's able to do something that his own father wasn't able to do in certain situations, which is he was able to talk to avoid any type of wide-scale conflict. So Naruto crawled when he was getting his face stomped in by Karui and by Omoi over the Killer Bee stuff. Naruto crawled when he was bowing in front of the Raikage to try and stop the execution meeting over Sasuke during the 5 Kage summit. Also, Boruto could run right now. Whether or not you like that progression, that's going to be up for you guys down in the comment section. I'm not saying I'm a fan of it. I'm just saying this is what it is. Boruto pulled out the Book of Uzumaki, went to chapter 3, verse 2, the Book of Ichiraku, and he started preaching them sermons. And by the time he was done preaching, he had Ikada feeling the Holy Ghost of Ichiraku, and he was saying, can I get a Hagoromo? But I will say I did like how you saw another little bit of setup here, essentially for Kawaki's line of thinking, because Kawaki doesn't hesitate to kill Arayumi, just like he doesn't hesitate to take a life in the Boruto manga later on. So I get where they're taking this. I get the next episode preview portion where Boruto and Kawaki, they're having their bitter disagreement. This is going to be a divisive episode. I can already tell, because a lot of people wanted this to be a knockdown, drag 'em out fight, and essentially what they did in this episode was try to play up the fact that you don't need to clash fists in order to see emotions and come to an understanding. So what I want to know from you guys is, where do you fall on this perspective? Should there have been a big battle at the end of this arc? Or did taking a more mature approach for the end of the arc work better for you? Next week's episode is going to be the resolution episode, then we'll be officially done with the arc. But while you consider those questions, consider watching these other videos you're seeing on the screen right now.